Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Coma Pirate Radio, where we, as esoteric pirates, slide our boats together, throw the ropes, tie the knots, and talk about some maps. This is an episode of The Map, and we're talking with Filip. He is from
Bulgaria originally.
And we've been spending about 20 days or so together here at Coma. What brought you to the Center of Mystic Arts?
It was an interesting kind of trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
I was in Europe when I was talking to you, when we were messaging back and forth, when you were like, send me a voice message. It's so much better to hear that voice.
Yeah.
But now I know what you mean by, and when you talk to me about time and how deep you got in the whole analogy of what time was, I was like, okay, maybe that's the place for me that I need to go. That's my next step. So that was when I was there in Europe, maybe a couple months before that, I had this dream that I should go. I mean, it was a clear voice that said, I mean, almost like a jokingly, like a poetic way, this voice appeared in my dream and said, try considering Pavones in Costa Rica. It's a left point surf break, and it was very descriptive.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know anything about that town until I looked it up the next day, and it turned out to be a city in Costa Rica. So I've always, I mean, prior 3 months ago, I had the idea of coming to Costa Rica eventually, but something was pulling me to Bulgaria and exploring a little bit about my roots and my upbringing. Maybe part of me that I needed to recover as part of myself on a healing journey and self-awareness and consciousness, kind of finding out where I was from, because I was moved to America when I was 15 with my family and didn't know anything about, almost like got ripped out of the culture back in Bulgaria and totally forgot about the culture, the traditions, the customs, the people, you know, the energy, just the energy. And we got taken to this big machine of industrialization and production and competition, and it was a very tricky place to be. So I felt like Bulgaria was very much calling me back to go explore.
Now, in Bulgaria, were you in a rural area?
Well, we had a farm. That's where my grandpa kind of lived. And we, as a family, we lived in the city. So we would visit grandpa every weekend. We'll be with them every weekend. Yeah, but I felt like I completed the task when I was there. I was there for 2.5 months, exploring Bulgaria, parts of Greece, parts of Turkey. And that was the place where I looked at my lineage, and it's mostly Greek, all throughout the Greek peninsula and the whole like archipelago and parts of Italy. So that part of the Balkans was where I'm from. At least that's what Ancestry says. And I kind of feel a little bit, maybe have a little bit of Italian in me by the color of my skin. So I'm kind of like explored that area for a couple months, and I feel like I accomplished what I needed to do. And that was mainly the big lesson there, was kind of healing my father's aspect of myself. Because my relationship with my dad has always been tricky growing up. And he was the hardest person that I could communicate and kind of have an understanding with. And I felt like going back to Bulgaria, I encountered some people that I had conflict with, and they very much almost like they became my dad for like a moment in time where they clearly told me that I should not be begging for attention from them. Almost like I was in the ceremony where the head shaman told me that maybe I was asking too many questions. You know how a child has too many questions about how things are ran? And the shaman clearly almost like turned into my dad, almost like he shapeshifted into my dad. And he told me, oh, you require too much attention, always asking me questions. You know, it's not about you, all that stuff. And I clearly understood that there's no need of approval that I need to seek from my dad, ever. And I felt like for me growing up, that was like the one thing that I always envisioned myself getting, like maybe my dad coming to me and saying, "Hey son, you're doing really well in life. I'm so proud of you," you know? And I always imagine him saying these words, and I'm like just collapsing on the ground crying, you know? I'm like, but now I realize I don't need to seek that.
Yeah.
I just have to follow my heart and what my heart's telling me, and follow the flow of life. And that's what led me here. Once I completed that task back home, I felt like, okay, now the calling is Costa Rica. And when I told my friends there, you know, I'm like, all right, I'm leaving Costa Rica, and they're like, what? What are you? Because they've never heard people traveling like that. When I go back home, nobody travels.
Oh yeah.
Everybody stays put. And I felt like it's so strange when you tell people, oh, I'm going from one side of the world to the other in like just a few months.
Yeah.
You know, it's like really crazy to people. I found you on Workaway. I did a Workaway for those guys in Bulgaria as well with the ceremonies, and I helped out facilitate a few ceremonies.
Yeah.
That was Workaway as well. Workaway has been working out so far.
Yeah, it is an amazing platform. Tell me a little bit about wanting to connect with the horses and the equine energy.
That's what mainly led me here, is the horses and just the freedom. I saw your profile, and you just seem very easygoing. Almost like not like other workaways where they require you to do a certain amount of work every day and put in those duties. Yours was more easy going and see what you could contribute to the place. Maybe there's a hidden gift inside of you that you want to share with people that come, and that's really what pulled me. And also the horses too, because when I told my dad, and that's another instance where I could not get along with my dad, was I told him, hey, I'm going to Costa Rica to hang out with some horses and just take care of some horses, you know. And I explained to him why I'm doing it, and he thought it was a waste of time. He thought he couldn't understand why I'm doing this. But the reason is that my grandpa used to have horses back in the day. And I know for a fact my grandpa loved his horses. He loved his horses just like he loved a son, you know. But a lot of times, and I notice with these horses now, when they don't listen to you, and sometimes they don't, they do their own horse thing, you know. They're just being horses. And my grandpa used to get so upset with my horses that I used to beat him a lot, you know, with whips. I even saw him holding a hammer one time. Whoa. I didn't physically see him hit the horse, but I know that he's probably used the hammer on the horse as well. And that was, I mean, my grandpa was a vicious man, and I understand why, where it's coming from, and he would use force. Like back over there, people would use like a crude amount of force to get what they want, and to get what they want now.
It's very much in the horse world of that, train them fast with dominance and scare them into compliance. And in my experience, I've been riding horses since I was 8 years old, and training my entire adulthood. And through my teenage and younger years, where I was absolutely hot-headed, and oh my God, have I lost my temper with horses. And I absolutely have seen some really gnarly training techniques. So, it is a journey, and it is very much a practice of patience and just asking a little from the horse at the time. Just a little. Just give me, okay, say you want, the horse to do an extended trot. Well, if you just ask them to just lengthen a little bit, and then you need to be happy with that. We had worked the horses a little bit, and see, Asana, my white mare, and I don't really trust each other that well, because she's bucked me off a few times, and I'm just not as bonded with her as I am with Chola. When you expressed the desire to ride her, I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. We worked on the lunging and getting her to do what you say with the pace, and moving away from you and then coming towards you. It was one night I woke up and the horses were out front, and it was one of those nights where I was just going to get up and have a cigarette with the horses, and I walked out. It was the full moon.
It was.
It was the full moon. And I just walked outside, and there was Filip riding this white mare under the moonlight. And I was like, wow. And just the clumping of the mud and the and you had your hoodie on, and I could hear you breathing and the horse breathing, and it was, oh God, it was such a beautiful sight. I really did almost fall to my knees. I was just like, oh. And I sat down and started smoking and just watched you with her, and you did so well. Like, she was so just walking around, and you stopped her and started a couple times.
That was I mean, that's why I came. Like that really fulfilled my journey here coming to you. Was that night I was kind of like, the whole day I was dealing with these stressors of my relationship with my dad, you know, because he kept calling me, and I told you about it. My dad, I told you, like, he doesn't understand, he won't listen to what I'm doing or anything, but also he keeps messaging me, asking me to come home. He obviously needs me for some reason, for something, but he cannot express what he really needs. And that's what I'm trying to understand. And I believe that me healing the relationship with my dad would set me up for success. If I have a successful masculine on my side, like as a father figure, and they completely agree with what I'm doing and completely trust me blindly, then I'm gonna have a good life. But if I have my dad questioning or not agreeing with the things I'm doing, not really pretending that they love me, but they despise me if I do something that they don't like me doing, or maybe that's something that they don't feel comfortable doing. Maybe he never knows what it feels like to go somewhere new, and he has that fear, right? So they obviously project that fear onto me. And the whole day I was like kind of dealing with my dad messaging me about coming home, and I was understanding that as a form of sign. Obviously my dad is asking for something, and I'm asking the ethers and, you know, the space. I haven't talked to you guys, but I was like, what is required of me in this situation? Am I supposed to go back home? I also came for these horses because I believe that maybe I'm healing my grandpa's relationship with them. And my grandpa carried the name Filip or Filip back home, and in Greek it means lover of horses. And for my grandpa to carry the same name as me, I had this vision of me coming and working with these horses and really treating them like they're my brothers, my you know, treating them with full respect and acknowledgement, asking them how to work with them, how to properly groom them, how to properly take care of them, and still allow them to be horses too, you know, and not really get angry, not really be abusive to them. So I felt a really deep meaning into coming here and doing that type of work with the horses. Really just kind of flip the whole karma upside down and just take care of that. You know, a lot of times in my life I feel like it's one thing to visualize it in your head, and maybe you're forgiving somebody. One thing is to visualize it, but also another thing is maybe you did something wrong in the past, right? Maybe you stole something from a store. Yeah. It's one thing to say, oh, I'm never going to steal ever again, but the karma, I believe, still stays. You have to physically move your body and maybe go back to the same store that you stole, and then maybe buy half the Snicker bars, you know, like just like the
overspend.
Yeah, overspend on the stuff that you actually took from the store, and kind of like pay back the karma that you inflicted on yourself. Yeah. And I believe in those physical things, like, okay, maybe it wasn't me physically that abused the horses, but my grandpa did, and I saw that, and he carries the same name as me, and I feel him in my blood and bones. So I have to do this for us, you know. I have to do it for, not just for myself, because, and honestly, I don't really care about me working with horses that much. But after that night, I fell in love, you know. I fell in love with these creatures. So my whole process was, I meditated at nighttime when kind of everybody went to sleep. I stayed up and I sat down, and I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this out tonight. I'm going to stay up all night. And that was like my goal. I'm going to stay up all night and think about, you know, when everything's quiet. When there's no noises around, when everything's quiet, I'm going to think I'm gonna see if I can hang out with these horses. And they were just outside, they were right there. So I would stay inside, meditate, and then walk outside and hang out with them for a bit. I would see them like laying on the ground, and I would go and hang out with them and just look at them, pet them, establish that connection with them. And once I felt a little bit of a trust, every time I would come and start to walk away, they would follow me. So then I built that relationship with them, and I would come back in and meditate a little bit more, and then come back out, almost like back and forth. And I'm like, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and almost like a kid trying to figure out new ways to approach and do something. Then it becomes like a two-way street, right? Because the horse has to establish some sort of trust in you, and then I have to establish a trust in the horse.
Right.
So it's like a two-way street. And I was realizing, okay, well, if I ask the horse what he needs, almost like a human, like a child, okay, what do you need, asana? Like, how can we do this? Like, can I grab here? Can I pet here? Can I do this? And understanding the communications that the horses have, like when they don't agree with stuff, they just shake their head, or they would clench their teeth and like make this grinding, almost like they grind their mouths. And I understood that that's very much a sign of like, okay, I'm getting uncomfortable. And I would back off at that point. So doing this back and forth for a few hours, coming back, meditating, then I walked outside and I saw Chola, it's a brown horse that you ride. And I saw her, and she was being more friendly at the time, so I walked up to her, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get up on Chola without any harness or anything. So I grabbed by the mane, and I asked her, can I grab here to get up on you? And she said, sure. And I used the mane to actually pull myself in. I'm not sure if they still like it, or if they're used to it. Maybe they're never used to people grabbing them on the mane to ride them. But I jumped up, and immediately as I jumped up, I felt my consciousness like I was in a different space. It's almost like my spirit was trying to link with the animal spirit, and I was in the in-between phase of, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not sure if this horse is trusting me. Maybe I'm like, my consciousness is part of this horse, thinking like, what's on top of me? What's going on? This guy in the middle of the night, can I trust this person? So it was back and forth. I was feeling not only myself and like what I was going through, but also what the horse was going through. And then I realized that breathing is really what connects both spirits. And once I kind of dialed that in, the horse he almost became conscious of me and what I wanted to do. So first I wanted to not have her walk around, but just sit on her, sit on top and just pet her, tell her that she could trust me. And then I saw you lying back on her.
I'm kind of glad I didn't find you riding Chola.
So I decided to lie back down. And that's when the moon it was kind of cloudy beforehand. But then as soon as I lied down, I felt like everything cleared up. And I saw the moon and I saw the star. I'm not sure what star, maybe Sirius. It's the really bright one. I'm not sure which one.
It's a very bright star. I mean, Venus is the brightest it's not a star. Venus is a planet, but...
Might have been Venus. But it fully opened up. The whole sky opened up. And it was so bright. And I was like, I don't know how long I was laying on the back of the horse, but enough to realize that, whoa, okay, I felt like in my body something like was being fulfilled, something was being served, and something was being accomplished. And at that point, I felt like, well, if I die tomorrow, then my job is done. Almost like I felt that sense of peace inside of me just by laying on top of the horse. And then I probably stayed there long enough, because when I came up, Chola was doing her own thing, maybe like feeding on some grass or whatever, and I stood back up and she almost twitched and was like, oh shit, you're on top of me. Like she got spooked a little bit by just me coming up. But then I rode her for a bit and then got off. And then the same thing I did with asana after a few hours too. Maybe she saw me being comfortable with Chola, and you could probably tell me a little bit more about the relationship between them too, because I feel like once I rode Chola, then Asana was more kind of up for having me ride on top of her.
Yeah, they do absolutely watch, and they're observant. And I've had a lot of horses that are in training that will watch you train another horse, and they get it. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, that's a possibility that Asana was like, oh, okay, this is what he wants to do. And she's seen me ride Chola. Actually, in the beginning, Asana didn't let me touch her for a whole year. She would just like move away from me and wouldn't let me touch her. And I didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever, you know. And then she was always standing there watching me work with Chola, watching me groom her, and watching Chola like, wait, that looks like it feels good. Wait a second, you know. And yeah, eventually was like really started like coming to me and letting me touch her and groom her. And she's always had this little, what we call in the equestrian world, a little pony attitude, like little tude, you know, where she's just like, meh, I don't want you to touch me there. Oh, don't touch me there. And like, remember when you had, she was trying to bite you a few times.
Right.
She's very nippy. But it was really interesting watching her with you, because you didn't flinch when she went to bite you. You actually was like, okay, here, bite me if you want to.
That's how I established the connection with her.
Yeah, and she didn't.
She tried to. She almost like went and put her mouth on my hand, but then backed off and then slowly just pressed against my arm. And then she stopped asking or stopped trying to bite me after that, because I had to show her that almost that, I mean, you were talking about that confidence, right? I've got to present myself as not being afraid. And I'm like, well, if you want to bite me, if I was, I asked her, well, if this is how you want us to work up to getting to know each other, if the only way is for you to bite me, then I'm willing to take that risk and allow you to bite me. So go ahead, bite me, and if that's the way we're gonna work together, you know, that was my kind of thought process. And then she was like, she did it for a bit, but then she backed off, and then that's when she kind of submitted.
And it's interesting too, because I've really come to understand like the reason why she'd be fine walking around when I was training her and riding her, and then the bucking was just an explosive, like, boom, all of a sudden, out of nowhere. She wouldn't really feel like she was about to buck. But what I've come to find as we were working with her, and as I've been like really observing with her, is that the bit in her mouth, she tends to thrash her tongue around and throw her tongue on top of the bit. Now, I have a really, really soft bit. If you're an equestrian and you know about different bits, it's a snaffle. It's a really, really nice bit. But she tends to throw her tongue over it and get really, like, all she's thinking about is the bit. And I don't think she's meaning at all to buck me off, because the time she really hurt me, I remember when I looked at her, I was mad. I was like, could barely breathe, you know. I think she broke my tailbone. I wasn't able to ride for like 5 months. It was bad. But I remember the look on her face was really surprised. Like the feeling from her was like, what did I do? Like a surprise, like, oh God, I think I really hurt you, you know. But with you working her without the bit, because you just jumped on with the halter.
I figured that's how the Indians did it back in the day. They just throw a rope over, right?
Yeah.
And then fully merge with the spirit of the horse. And then I also like understood that the first ride is always going to be the most kind of bumpy ride until I get to know the animal. And I'm sure that's, I was trying to figure out what the natives did back in the day as far as, okay, you get to, you know, get close to the horse, right? Obviously you throw the rope over, and then the first ride, the horse doesn't know what's happening, and you have to physically get up on top of the horse and ride him to maybe the point of exhaustion, I'm guessing, to where
Sometimes, yeah.
to where the horse is like, okay, well, this guy's not coming off.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
I guess I'll get used to him. And that's
the
really,
acceptance, that
right,
surrender.
Right. And I know there's techniques where you tie up a horse around the pole and you make him run until the point of exhaustion, and that's when the horse kind of more easily submits to your suggestions.
And like as a trainer that's working a young horse, that the horse does something negative, right? Like, it's when you study equine language, a horse in a herd, if the horse does something that's unacceptable to another horse, the other horse runs him. It's very much the language of the horse. So yeah, when the horse does something that you are not, okay, this is not acceptable, yeah, you run them. And then the thing is with that is you pay attention to their body language, because when you're running a horse, it's very much like what you were talking about. You can see their lips are clenched and they're, they can be, I don't like you. But the second they breathe and they relax, they start smacking their lips, their head goes down and their ears start to twitch. They're really saying, okay, I submit. And you have to back off at that point. Because that's when the horse trusts you and looks at you and is like, oh, you heard me. Because if you keep pushing them and they're submitting, then it creates that negative distrust, because the horse is like, oh, I'm saying sorry. And you're just still pushing.
Right.
So yeah, when you're able to do that numerous times, and a horse will submit to you, and then you back off, and then the horse will look at you and be like, oh, okay. And then he accepts you and trusts you as the alpha. Because if you're going to tell a horse to do something, he's going to have to feel you as the alpha.
Right.
Because, we've talked about it as like, they're not dogs. They're not like, oh, I want to do something with you because I'm your best friend, and oh, let me just jump in your lap. No, they're like much more standoffish, much more needing a relationship before they're able to do what you want them to do. But yeah, it's been such a beautiful time with you, and you do plan on coming back, don't you?
Well, the plan is to go, and since my dad is asking me to come home, I feel like in a space where I'm meant to go back and hang out with them for a bit, and then eventually making my way back down. I didn't even go to the city, Pavonis.
Yeah.
That was my plan after being here for a few weeks, to head back down and check the place out, but I haven't even been there, so I definitely would like to come and do more work with you guys here. And I mean, it's a beautiful place. I tapped into my feminine a lot with being so artsy and creative here, and I feel like just the space allows for that, the easygoing attitude, and also like just the rain that keeps pouring every day just keeps you wanting to actively use up your time with some ways. And art is seeming that all these little projects with bamboo that I've been tampering with has just been amazing.
It has been rainy season, and one of the other amazing things was so funny, because I kept saying, oh my God, if you couldn't get any sexier, come on now. He's just like, I'm going to make a didgeridoo. He's like, what are you doing with this bamboo? And I'm like, I don't know, it's just been laying there. Like an hour later, he starts, I hear the didgeridoo, and I'm like, what is that? It sounds amazing. And I get up and walk in there, and he's playing this freaking bamboo, like the didgeridoo. I was like, oh my God, for real.
He had a bamboo stick, so yeah, it's.
And you painted it, and he even put the wax around the lip and everything, like the mouthpiece.
That's my gift for the place. I feel like the place needs a didgeridoo here as well. You have other instruments.
Absolutely.
We do vocal toning, and now you can play the didgeridoo as well.
I have a hard time with it. Shell picked it up and played it like immediately.
You guys could practice,
Yeah, and then you had the kids doing it with the little tubes, the little PVC.
Yeah.
they were cute. They started wanting to do it too.
Yeah, I feel like everybody comes in here and leaves a little piece of art, either on the wall or they create something. And yeah, it's definitely very grateful for my time here. So I want to thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been amazing.
Thank you so much.
I mean, going back to the horses,
Yeah.
it was definitely a tricky experience to get to know a horse, because they still show a sense of, I don't really fully trust you yet. You know, and that happened today when I tried to bring him in.
Oh, yes.
And they completely just like did their own horse thing, just got out and started marching down the street, and I ran back to the house and I was like, Eve, I need a little help, and had to chase him down the street. Got bit by a dog at the same time. It was just like a wild morning that I had with these horses. But that just shows me that it's the expectation of me expecting that the horse will do and obey me fully is not there yet. It's almost like I need to be here and actually putting the time daily. Like, I know people train horses daily
for
establish
years.
the relationship, and it's I mean, it's not an overnight thing. Just I felt like me staying up with them all night definitely made them feel safe and secure, but I feel like I have to do this like every night, almost like just enough time where they can fully trust me and really listen to me and follow me wherever I go, and know that I'm not going to harm them or beat them or anything.
The best feeling, that really is the best feeling, is when you get to that point. And Shola and I are really at that point where we can, walk, trot, canter, totally trust her. She totally trusts me. And that's really when you can start dancing and using your body to like do side bends and side passes and shoulder ins and tight circles and spirals, and that's when it really gets fun.
It's almost like a relationship too with another partner, right? It's like when you fully establish that trust that you have mutually, and trust the other person with being themselves. Maybe being themselves is something that you don't necessarily like sometimes the horses do their own thing, not necessarily something you like, but you understand that that's the dynamic, and that needs to happen in order for us to come around and be fully okay. I trust you now,
right?
And now I'm ready. Let's dance,
right?
Let's
and we
together.
talked a lot too about like there's different kinds of riding. Like there's just people that just like trail riding, right, where you just jump on and all you're asking the horse to do is stay on the path and walk, trot, or canter on a path, But the kind of riding that I do, which is like classical dressage, it's a lot more like dancing and having a dance partner and doing tight movements in a small space where we work in a circle, a 20-meter circle, rather than out like on the trail, which I totally see us going out on a trail. Like whenever you come back and we work with the horses a lot, I can see us taking the horses out to the beach.
They know the way down the street for sure.
They do. Do you notice the stones hurting their feet though?
Yeah, a little bit.
How they were like, yeah.
Chola was she was going. I saw you spread your arm, and I was like, spread your arms?
Yeah.
When she was coming around, and I was like, man, I hope she stops.
Yeah, she's a good girl. But yeah, they've gotten out numerous times, and it's been a whole process of, in the United States, when the horses get out, everybody panics because of the roads and the cars, and people will run over a horse and, like, damage themselves and, the car and the horse. And here they're paving all the roads, and the first thing that happens is the stones, which aren't good to ride on because the cobblestones really do kind of like puncture and push into their hooves. And with the paved roads, the cars are driving faster and faster, so it is getting a little bit more dangerous to ride to the beach, for instance. But
that would be amazing if we'd take him out. And
I know, I really want to
carry my surfboard on the side and go surfing with the horse. That would be amazing.
They've been to the beach that we went to.
Okay.
Yeah, numerous times. And I've had people, like the Ticos and stuff, will stop me and be like, why aren't you riding them? And I'm like...
I see them, some of them ride horses down and...
Yeah.
I mean, you got to put the hooves on the bottom.
The shoes,
The shoes, right?
The shoes definitely help, but I don't really like putting shoes on my horses. I'm going to get the rubber boots that they have. They've designed rubber boots that snap onto the hoof.
The slip-ons.
Yeah, like slip-on, rubber slip-on
I mean,
boots.
hopefully the roads stay like this. Hopefully they're not.
I hope so. But I mean, honestly, for the horses and really the cars,
pavement's probably better.
Pavement is better, even though I don't like the pavement either. I like the mud. Even when it's been raining as much as it has, I thought about it because I remember back when, like, if it had rained this much, that road would have just been red mud, like to your knees mud. Mm-hmm. And there would just be a little motorcycle paths where people would be able
if they
to
didn't
get
have
through.
the rocks.
Yeah, it was before the rocks came. That's the first thing they do is they put down the rocks, and then comes the pavement.
And you get to see all that, huh? Living here.
Yeah, I've watched it all.
For the last 5 years, you get to see everything.
It's been difficult. It's been difficult living on the edge, watching the society move into the wild places.
It's like you came here to kind of be away from that hectic lifestyle, and then the hectic lifestyle is coming to you. It's
moving in.
It's like moving in.
I know.
Is that crazy how... I mean, I see a lot of people doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They try to almost like... Is there any escaping that? Are we able to escape that? You think?
I'm hoping to educate people in how to move into a wild place and protect the wildness where we understand that we don't have to have cars. Like, I had 3 cars here before I finally was like, you know what, screw the cars. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to have a motorcycle. And understand that you don't need a car. The local people in the neighborhoods, they'll have 6 kids and they just have a motorcycle or 2. And everybody knows how to drive a motorcycle. The 10-year-olds know how to drive motorcycles, or they walk, or they ride horses. We have to have places where the cars are not allowed, especially with the sea turtle nesting grounds. But we don't have time to get into all of that.
It's a whole different topic.
It's a whole different topic. I want to thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. If you want to support all of these crazy traveling mystics that jump around the world and end up here at Coma, you can check out our Patreon account where we have a lot of content, a lot of unedited videos and meditations. This really helps support the art, paint on the walls, and make didgeridoos. Mystics for Mystics movement. You can also find all the links with hashtag Center of Mystic Arts. You can check out our website at centerofmysticarts.com. Thank you guys so much. Whether you're traveling physically or mentally, may it be in love and light and shadow. And don't forget the lube to get you through the tight spots, and don't forget the wax when you need to hold on tight to the ropes. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.